What's up, Cam?
Not much, Mitch. How are you, sir?
Doing okay. We're trying out Zoom for the first time on the show.
Yeah, it only took us a year to, get with the cool kid on the block. Is Zoom the cool kid though? Probably not.
It kind of is now. I think wasn't a year ago.
This is true.
I don't know. We've been recording on Zencaster up until now, and I think for podcasting, Zencaster works really nice. We just were running into latency in our video. Not that we couldn't have just went back to audio, but I don't know. Video's fun.
Indeed. I even combed my beard for the show today, Mitch.
Oh, it looks very nice. I didn't shave my head today like I would normally, like freshen up the shave, so I'm wearing a it's a little bushy under there right now. So a little follow up in the show doc today. We talked about a couple of things last week, and I'll take them in the order that we talked about them. First off, Readwise.
Yes.
Do you have any new things to say about it? I have a couple of things to share.
I wish the iOS app was a little more full featured when compared to the web app that you can access, on your computer. Really, all the iOS app does is give you your highlight feed, like for the day, and then you can browse the rest of your highlights. But pretty much anything that you want to do, that's like, I want to look at all of the books, I want to look at all of the articles, I want to look at all of my different podcast quotes, I want to manage my connections, whether it be to Notion or importing from Instapaper. All of that has to be done on a computer, and either through Chrome or Firefox, not Safari. So the iOS app is not as fully featured as I would like it to be, but I understand the limitations of what they're currently doing, so it is what it is. But that would be nice at some point down the road.
Now, I've only used it on iOS, so maybe I need to. My opinion should be taken into consideration with that. So we'll go from there. I've been using it. I don't know that it's worth the subscription fee for me. As I was looking, I can't remember how much it was, but it was a significant subscription fee to keep using it. And for me, like just don't know that that's going to be worth it for me. But I do like the concept. I like what it does. I think the thing that I've appreciated the most about it is the ability to have the little widget on the screen, and as I swipe over onto the screen that I have it on, I see a quote every day, which I've appreciated. It's reminded me of a few things that I haven't seen in a while, and I like it. The flip side of that is that I have a bunch of, like, we've done a lot of studies at church where I've highlighted stuff in the Kindle book, and I've highlighted a word.
Oh,
and so the word pops up on the widget, and it's like, and I'm looking at it going, okay, that's totally out of context. The other day I had something pop up that just said group. It didn't really do much for me in that respect, but I did run into some quotes. I shared them on Instagram, and it was kind of neat to do that right out of the iOS app. But apparently I should probably look at the web app. I'm assuming it's a web app.
Yeah.
So
if you go to the website readwise.io and sign in, they'll have all that stuff there.
Yeah. On the other hand, I am loving Robinhood.
I thought you might.
Now, I have not taken money out of Robinhood yet, and I don't know if they charge any fees for that. But I have appreciated the fact that to this point, I've moved money around. I put money into this for a day, and then pulled it out and put it into something else, and I just shifted money around a few different times, and found that it's very easy to do. It happens. I mean, I know it's not happening instantly in the background, but it seems like it's instantly changing, from, like, if I pull money out of Bitcoin and want to put it into Apple stock, it's nearly immediate that happens, or at least it shows it that way in the app. So, and you do get notifications in the background when the transfers actually happen. on when the sales actually happen. But I think that's it's really neat how they have it set up so that it does feel near instant. If I transfer money into the account, it's there right away instead of having to wait 2 or 3 days before I invest in something. So
Yes, for better or
I'm
worse, you
digging
can make instantaneous decisions.
it. This is true. I have found that I've been a little bit too reactionary to things. So I'm learning that I need to be more patient, let the market take its course. Because this last week has not been good for a couple of the stocks that I've had. I've had like 2 up days and a lot of down
Well,
days.
and the
So,
more selling you do, the more taxes you pay, which is the other reason to
oh, is that it?
be patient.
Is that the same with crypto or?
Yeah, I mean any profit you make by selling a stock, you have to pay taxes on. So you'll get a 1090, you'll get a 1099 this time next year from Robinhood for all the trading you did this year.
So leave it alone.
I mean,
or take it out and leave it out.
Yeah, it's up to you. You're an adult.
Yeah.
You get to make your own decisions.
Yep. Well, let's put it this way. I don't think I've made any money on those sales. So I don't know how that'll work out, but
Oh, I enjoy Robinhood. It's on my home screen. I check it a few times a day just to, like check on my pets, give them like a nice little scratch in the ear. How are you doing today, buddy? And then I'm like, oh, you're green. That's good. Oh, you're red. Okay, I'll just check back tomorrow and hope you're green again. But
yeah, I have a tendency to go in there several times throughout the day and go, okay, you were red before. Are you green yet?
long game.
Yeah. So especially like the cryptocurrency gets me because it goes up and down and up and down and up and down and just seems like it's all over the place.
It's very volatile.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So that hurts sometimes watching that. But you threw something into our show notes today that you wanted to talk about, and I have heard it talked about on Connected. So I'm not totally coming to this without any background, but this is the first. I just downloaded it before the episode, so I'll go ahead and let you talk. I'm going to mute my mic so that you can get out what you want to get out, so I don't interrupt you. So,
all right. So there's this application called Craft, and I'll be honest, I really wanted to not like it. I wanted to try it out and go, yeah, this is dumb. I don't like it. I don't need it. I don't want it. So I heard about it a couple months ago from Federico, probably on Connected, maybe on Mac Stories, his website. I don't remember where I heard about it first. And, I appreciate Federico's opinions on most things, not all things. Like he just straight up quit Apple Music for Spotify for the year just as an experiment. And okay. I mean, he does it for his podcast and his websites, but he was mentioning Craft, and Mike was talking about Craft and how though it's better than Bear. And I tried Bear and I didn't like it. And I was a plain text guy, IA writer. Remember we did the whole drafts challenge, and I didn't do drafts because I was sticking with IA writer because I was just so stuck in my plain text markdown ways. But the issue there is that pictures and videos and links are second or even third class citizens, right? It is plain text and that is it. And you're pretty much stuck in that. And so I decided while I was in Atlanta for my work trip this week that I was going to give Craft a shot because I had a lot of downtime in the hotel in the evenings because I don't really have any friends in Atlanta, it turns out. So I had no one to hang out with. And so I downloaded it and I just started taking it for a spin. And I was like, holy crap. What I didn't realize. So, okay, let me back up before I get into this. Craft is a note-taking application in the modern vein. A lot of people are like, oh, it's like Notion. And yes and no. I think it's better looking than Notion, but it's a lot less powerful than Notion. Notion is, you can do you can do everything you can do in Airtable, you can do in Notion. Notion is too much for me to use every day. But Craft is similar in the sense that you can have all sorts of different notes that you can either group together or make folders, or, and here's the thing, it has backlinking just like Notion and Roam does too, which got me thinking. I bought the yearly subscription for Roam, which was like $165 because I made a bad choice. And the yearly subscription for Craft is a quarter of that. It's like $5 a month, I think, if you pay annually. And so once I realized that it had backlinking, I could take everything that I was doing in Roam, move it to Craft, have native iOS apps, native Mac apps, have it actually look really good, because Roam is ugly as sin. Roam is like the poster boy for open source ugliness. And I could ditch that subscription, save myself $120 a year, use something that's actually pretty and is native on every platform, that syncs across all of them, and then use the free tier of Notion to store my Readwise stuff. So I took everything out of Notion, I took everything out of Roam, I put everything into Craft, I took everything out of IA Writer that was active and put it into Craft, and I've been using it for like the last 6 days. And again, I really, really, really wanted to not like it, and I think I'm in love, Mitch. I realize most of that was my opinions on stuff and not what it actually does. But maybe we can link to a Mac Stories article that will do a much better job, showing you screenshots and explaining what it can do than I can in a 5-minute overview. But it's
real-time follow-up.
Real-time follow-up.
Apparently, I've downloaded this before for the Mac and had no recollection of this. So I just re-downloaded the Mac app, and we'll have to play with that a little bit and see. But I have the web page for Craft in the show notes, and I'll see if I can't find that article on Mac Stories.
Yeah, and so one thing that I'm doing, Mitch, that I think you'll find very interesting, and this is my hook to try and get you to try it, is I have made one folder called the Bible, and in that folder I have many other folders that are the names of books in the Bible, like, say, Philippians. In there, I have one note for each chapter. So Philippians 1, 2, 3, and so on. So that when I'm either writing a lesson for youth group, writing a sermon for church, or taking sermon notes, or taking notes from a book that references Philippians 1, I can put a link to that page in the lesson, the sermon note, the book note. And then when I come and click on the Philippians 1 chapter page at the very bottom, it will show me every other page that this is linked to. So every lesson that I talked about it, every sermon that I talked about it, every sermon that I heard about it, or every book that mentions it, I'll have a running list so that I have backlinks on every chapter that I have in here to the places where it's being referenced, which I think is pretty darn cool. And then in the book notes or sermon notes, they've got these really pretty cards that you can display, and I'll send you a screenshot. Maybe we can put that in the notes too. I'll show you how I'm doing it. I use the card to make a really pretty call out of the verses, and then under the verse, I reference the page to the chapter. So I get a really pretty visual of the verse, but then also I'm placing that backlink in there so that I can connect these notes with this chapter in the Bible. So I think it's pretty cool.
Cool. I think it's got a lot of promise. I was not surprised. I was a little surprised as I'm looking through the getting started note that they have in here. Just the sheer amount of options that you have and things that you can do with this, as far as organizing. Yeah, that does look pretty.
Yeah, and you can choose the backgrounds. They've got all sorts of different gradients, and they also integrate with Unsplash, which is one of my favorite photo websites. And so you can get any photo from Unsplash you can use as backgrounds for everything, and It's yeah, I like it. It's just powerful enough for me to feel like I can do what I want and make it look how I want, but not feel overwhelmed by the options,
Hmm.
which is nice. We'll see how I feel about this in 6 months when they've added 10 more features, but
Yep, I think there's a pretty good chance you cost me more money.
yeah, but you're not paying for Readwise, so it's actually cheaper than that.
This is correct. I did not pay for Readwise. That's good. So
Yeah, no, it's you can do a free trial, I think, for a while, right?
I just saw the yearly and monthly, which I think generally speaking of stuff like this, I'd prefer to do the yearly if it's something I'm going to commit to.
Yeah.
Just because I get tired of seeing $5 a month come out every month. So just doing like a yearly subscription
Yeah.
makes more
There's
sense.
a free tier
Okay.
for personal use. You get 1,000 blocks, simple PDF export, you sync across all your devices and inline markdown. If you jump up to the professional, which is, the $5 a month or the 45 a year, you get unlimited, all sorts of awesome stuff. But you can totally use it for free for a while.
Okay, yeah, I'll probably do that.
And then once you hit the 1,000 block mark, you can make your choice. But I would suggest people try it out.
Yeah.
This free is good.
All right, what's delighting you today, Cam?
I got a thing, Mitch.
Yeah, I see that you got a thing.
I got the Magic Keyboard for my iPad Pro. Now, the only reason I bought this was because Walmart was selling it 33% off.
Okay.
For the 11-inch version of the iPad Pro Magic Keyboard combination. And I was going, like I said, I was going on this trip to Atlanta, and I wanted to be able to use my iPad on the plane, both ways, and in the airport, and be able to type, and this, that, and the other thing. So I decided I would try it out, and it's really, really nice, Mitch.
I've heard good things. I do not have an iPad that can take advantage of it, but
yeah. Okay, good. Then I'll talk really nice about it and not feel like you're gonna spend.
I mean, upgrading the iPad is on the
oh yeah, but that's
list
way more expensive than the Magic Keyboard. So
yeah.
So I had used keyboard and mouse with my iPad when it first was a thing. However long ago when the updates to iOS came through. But I never took the time to ever reconnect my mouse and keyboard to my iPad because I had to get a stand and then it just wasn't convenient. But having the touchpad and the keyboard, easily attachable, it just pops on and off with a magnet, tablet mode, pop it right back on. It's a laptop, is super convenient. It doesn't add a lot of girth to the iPad. So physically, it adds maybe a 1/2 inch total there, and then you've got this extra keyboard or where the USB-C port is on the back. So it adds weight. It adds I think 2 pounds. So it's significantly heavier, but as far as size is concerned, it doesn't add much, which I really appreciate. I love they call it the cantilever design, that you can can change the angle, which is nice. I love that it leaves the USB-C port on your iPad open because you've got the USB-C port in the actual keyboard, and it's got pass-through charging, and it charges at the same rate it does if you plug it straight into the iPad, which is awesome. So if I need to plug in an SD card or a hard drive to do some photo editing, I can on the go. I can do that, which is really nice and not sacrifice power. I love the touchpad integration and the keyboard integration. It's just, the little guy is so cute. He just hops back and forth, and how on a desktop or laptop the mouse it does exactly what you want, but also that can be sometimes good and bad. You overshoot stuff by a 1/2 inch. On iOS, the little touchpad it'll snap to the things for you, which is really nice. And frankly, it makes me feel lazy in a good way because I come back to my computer. I'm like, no, I'm literally 10 pixels away. Just snap to the button I want you to click on for me. And it doesn't.
Can I ask a question about
Yeah.
that? How would you feel if they decided to do that on the Mac?
I feel like it would need to be an opt-in feature because it's going to piss a lot of people off if they make that the default. But if it's an
Mhm.
opt-in feature, I would try it.
Yeah, because I think it'd be really interesting that everything that is a quote unquote touch target,
Mm-hmm.
like that it kind of snap to each of those. I'd try it for a while and see if I liked it
It
or
would
not.
be a little difficult with like the the stoplights in the top left corner of your Mac programs, the red,
Hmm.
yellow and green because they're so small.
Yeah.
Um, so I think there would have to be a bit of a visual overhaul to Mac OS again, if in order to do that, which is why I think it works on iOS because everything is big enough that it for your finger, like that's the
Hmm.
smallest something can be, so it really lends itself to larger touch targets. But yeah, if they made it an option, I would certainly give it a try just to see how it felt.
How do you feel in general about the iPad being a first class citizen on your workflow versus having a desktop machine or laptop?
Well, okay, so what I love about my iPad is right, like I can have it in this keyboard, as a pseudo laptop doing whatever I want. But then the second I want to go, sit on the couch and draw, I just rip it off the thing, take my pencil, and go draw, right? Or highlight. Or if I want to go read, it's easier to read with just the iPad than this whole keyboard contraption. So like the modularity of it, I enjoy. It can be a tablet when I want it to be a tablet. It can be a laptop per se, in 90% of the use cases, right? When I want it to be. It's got great battery life, like everything that I want. If I want to touch it, if I want to draw on it, I can do that. If I want to use a keyboard and mouse, I can do that. Where it obviously falls apart for me, and for you, is I don't have Logic, I don't have Final Cut, we don't have Premiere, we don't have Audition, right? Like the things that we choose to do, podcasts. I can edit photos um on an iPad because there's Lightroom on the iPad, which is great, and Photoshop. So that checks off one of the three boxes that I need checked. But until I get Final Cut and Logic on the iPad, I'm gonna have to have a Mac. Period. Like I just don't have a choice. Um, so those are the two glaring issues for me. But outside of that, I love having this as a thing. Like it fits. It's smaller than my laptop, um, and they can do everything but video and audio editing that way. And I know Ferrite exists. I've tried it. I want Logic on my iPad. I want.
Yeah, Ferrite I've looked at from time to time, and I see the promise of it. I see how the workflow could work really well with it, and I've watched Jason Snell's videos on how to use it. I mean, because he edits the incomparable
Mm-hmm.
on in Ferrite, and I can definitely see how it works. It's not the way that I edit.
Yeah.
You know, I actually moved away from Logic because it was that same kind of mentality where you were taking multi tracks and getting rid of the silence and then sliding everything forward and sliding everything forward and moving blocks around, which I think works really well for some people. It's just not the way my brain works. So for me, Adobe Audition works way better because I'm much more of a linear editor than that. So, and the features that Audition offers, I mean, you pretty much there aren't too many guys that I know that because I looked at like Stephen Hackett and Mike Hurley were talking recently on Backstage about how they do their editing and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and I differ with Steven a little bit on how I do it. I mean, he runs it through Audition for the filtering features.
Well, and for the
You know,
matching the loudness and setting the
yeah,
the LUFs and all
that's
that.
that's the yeah, that's the big one that he does is the matching loudness. And I'll run the matching loudness and then but then I run stuff through Isotope, Nectar 3 to cut, because like right now as we're on the Zoom call, you can hear my heater down here. Nectar filters that out with the noise gate.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm able to set the noise gate to filter that out. So you're not hearing that in the final recording. I also, just using the EQs to level us and make us sound a little bit better. All that stuff I can do within Audition with the plugins. And then just all the editing, where, someone like Stephen Hackett would take the editing into Logic to do the rest of the editing. I just leave it. I leave it in the multi-track and Audition. But I came up through the radio industry where Audition was the tool that everybody used.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm comfortable with. And even though I've used Audition a lot for different things, I'm sorry, not Audition, Logic for a lot of things. Audition's just my tool of choice. So, and it's just two really different ways of thinking about editing. One, you're thinking more on the waveform level, and the other, you're like with Logic, you're pretty much doing everything in multi-track. Where yes, when I edit our stuff, it's in multi-track. But if I'd go through and I'm doing a sermon for church or something like that, the first pass through on the edit is always in the single waveform, which is a little bit more difficult. It's not impossible, but it's not as convenient in Logic. So, but anyway, I agree. Ferrite is just not the way that I do my editing.
Yeah, and there's this whole push, right, that Federico has been on for years, and Jason to a certain extent too is doing all your work on the iPad and embracing the challenge that has been over the last 10 years, and making very complex workflows and shortcuts and hacks in order to get things done. And while I love reading about that stuff and seeing the ingenuity and the cleverness and the intelligence and that, like Federico's set up to record a podcast on an iPad like 2 years ago was like absurd, right? But that's who he is, and that's his job, and that's why we, enjoy what he does. He takes the time and the pain to go through that. I don't want to. I love my iPad so much. It's wonderful. I love it. If I want to edit and produce a video or a podcast, I am not going to jump through the hoops I need to do that on. I'm not going to use LumaFusion. I'm not going to use Ferrite. I'm going to go to my Mac. I'm going to fire up Final Cut. I'm going to fire up Logic, and I'm going to knock it out of the park using a tool that I don't have to make any compromises with. And that's just my personal preference. And like I said, I'm a Mac Stories subscriber. I pay Federico $5 a month because I love what he does, and I love that he takes the time to do it and then lets me read about it without having to go through that myself, right? And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Now I'm going to go back to the thing that my professional tool that works. So I'm not at all dissing him or Jason. I think they're both very, very good at what they do. I want a full featured tool on a full featured machine that doesn't make me have any compromises when I'm doing the stuff that I want to do. And luckily, I shouldn't say luckily, I am blessed that I have the opportunity to use those tools. And I know that not everyone does. So I don't want to come across, belligerent here. Like, I understand that I have access to tools that not everyone has access to, and I'm blessed because of it. Or I am blessed, and that is one of the ways in which I am. So.
And I'll follow that up to say that, I spent a lot of time, messing with my iPad when I first got it to really, and that's my general, I love doing that anyway, just push the limits of the technology to see, what can I do? I oftentimes refer to that as I set out to break the machine when I when I get a new machine, because I want to see, what are my limitations? What can I do on this machine, and what can't I? And I remember vaguely having a conversation with somebody about something that they wanted to do on their iPad. And I was like, oh, well, if you download this app and you get this other app and this third app and you use them like this, then you can do what this one app on your Mac can do. And all of a sudden I realized Wait a minute. Yeah, you have to jump through a lot of hoops to uh, get that thing to work on the iPad versus just going over to your iMac and banging it out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So okay, let me ask you this, since this has
sure.
officially become our second topic.
Yep.
If you were going to recommend a iPad, let's just say the new iPad Air, so it's not crazy
Mm.
expensive, or the new MacBook Air, the M1, you know, it's like $1,000. If someone came to you and they said, "Mitch, I need one machine that lets me do email, read the internet, listen to music, video call, um, word processing, all of the normal stuff, right?
Hmm.
They're not doing any audio or video production, um, that sort of stuff. You know, they wanna check Facebook, they wanna, you know, scroll through Twitter, they wanna watch YouTube videos, they wanna watch movies, they wanna, you know, do that sort of stuff. What would you suggest to somebody?
So
Or you no, no, forget,
there, there's
let's make
some.
the price comparison the same. iPad Pro or
Yep.
MacBook Air.
Yeah, the price is the same. Um, I think there's a little bit more of a conversation to be had, because part of what I would want to look at is what are you comfortable with? What have you used in the past? Are you interested in trying something new? I mean, are you coming from an iPhone or are you coming from a Windows machine or something like that? You know, what is your experience? And if the experience is coming from an iPhone, then they're probably going to move into an iPad a little bit more easily.
Mhm.
If they're coming from, you know, a laptop or a desktop experience, the uh, the MacBook Air might be a little bit better. But there's really, like, for my wife would probably be doing a lot of the same things. She uses her phone for everything. I don't know how she does it, but she uses her phone for everything. She filed our taxes on her phone this year, which, you know, I think has gotten easier and easier over the years. But you know, the fact that she did it years ago when it was still like, you just filed our taxes on your phone. What? Okay. And there's other things that she does on her phone that she's does a little bit of like spreadsheet editing and stuff like that. She built this huge spreadsheet on her phone, and I'm just like, what?
She's a
So for
iPhone power
her,
user.
yeah. So her, I look at and think an iPad certainly would do what she needs it to do. But in the conversations that I've had with her, she wants a little bit more screen real estate.
Mhm.
I don't think she wants the heavy 12.9-inch iPad. So we've talked a little bit about getting like a 13-inch MacBook Air for her. And quite honestly, if the money was in the budget right now, I would have no issue pulling the trigger on that and getting her an M1 um, 13-inch MacBook Air. And I think she would love it, you know, and be able to do those spreadsheets and do all this stuff. She has my old MacBook, but we can't update numbers to match up with what we're doing now. So they're like slightly different file formats,
Oh.
and she's having trouble with compatibility between those. So she can't really do the spreadsheeting and stuff like that, and have it compatible with um, numbers on her phone. So so that's been an issue. So that's one of the main things that I've been looking at. Um, but she manages the home for the most part, uh, either on paper or through her phone. And so giving her the ability to do that on a larger screen, you know, more conveniently, I think the MacBook Air suits her needs better. What's interesting is my mom and dad both. One of them has my mom, much to my behest, wanted a Windows machine, and so we worked through that process to get her something that was going to work for her several years ago.
Mhm.
um but then my dad, for when he retired, you know, he wanted something, and they got an iPad for him, you know. My dad doesn't do email. He doesn't text message. I think he plays solitaire on his iPad.
Good for
I
him.
don't know that he does much more than
Good for
that.
him.
But he, he'll play a game. He'll go online and read articles and print off the articles so that he can read them.
I love it.
We've had talks about that too.
That's awesome.
So, but yeah, my parents do that a lot. They got to print it out to read it, and it's like you realize you can read it right on the device, right? Yeah, but we just like it this way. I was like, well, if you want to pay for the ink and the paper, that's up to you, I guess.
Yeah, I have that same conversation with my dad about music.
Yeah,
he's like, "Why would I pay for Apple Music when I have 3,000 CDs I already paid for?" I'm like, "All right, that's you know what? That's actually a good point, Dad. Carry on, sir.
Do what you got to do." But their needs were very different. Like you put a laptop in my dad's lap and he wouldn't even know where to start with it. But the intuitiveness of the iPad worked really well for him. He could touch a square on the desk or on the home screen and launch an app. And then the app was really intuitive and he moved it around with his fingers and that all made sense to him. I think some people that, so in my job, I used to be in HR, and there were times that I had people come into work and computers, we do everything on the computer. So somebody that comes into our job, we have to, you start on the computer, filling out your paperwork and all this kind of stuff. I have had to teach people how to use the keyboard and mouse before they could actually run the computer and help them to understand what the input devices do and how they relate to the screen. And it's interesting when you get somebody in there that I've never used a computer before. What do I do?
That's actually impressive.
Where we live is fairly remote, and there's a lot of older folks in our area that just, like, we hire a lot of retirees and stuff because they're coming to just work a part-time job to stay busy, and they live on in a house in the middle of the country somewhere isolated from everybody. They don't have a computer. They barely have internet where they're at, so they just don't. And maybe they've got a little flip phone from the 90s that they use to communicate with people, but they just don't know. They don't have it. So it to sit and have to teach somebody how to use a keyboard and mouse, for my dad, we probably would have had to have that conversation. That little square at the bottom of the laptop keyboard is you move things around with your finger. Oh, well, that arrow on the thing is where my finger is. Yeah. And you'd have to have that conversation just because he's never used one before. But the iPad he took right too. So I think it has a lot to do with the individual and what they're looking for, as to which one that I would recommend. If they had no background in computers, probably the iPad would be better, but it would take some time to teach them, and you'd have to set everything up for them and make sure that it is about as dead simple as it can be. So yeah, I tried to get my dad texting on the iPad with me through iMessage, and I sent like one text, and he I went and saw him like a month later, and I said, "Hey, did you get that message that I sent you on your iPad?" "Yeah, I opened it up, but I didn't know what to do with it." He's like, "I saw it, but," I was like, "What do you do?" I was like, "Well, you see that little field at the bottom there where it says message? You just tap on that and a keyboard pops up." "Oh, okay." So then I sent him another message not long after that, and I got nothing back. So I'm like, all right, Dad, I get the hint.
Yeah, that's funny.
So, but it's all right. I mean, he's gonna do what he's comfortable with, and yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, my dad writes his text messages like they're letters. Hello, son, comma, next line. How are you this afternoon? Question mark. I love you very much, comma, next line, Dad. Well, aren't you adorable, Dad?
Yeah, that's
You have
awesome.
perfect grammar. I'm glad that you didn't take my bait and just choose one, because that's what I would have done. I'd have been like,
Hmm.
iPad Air or iPad Pro, just done. End of conversation.
Yep.
You actually were thoughtful about it, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I have a little Siracusa in me, so yeah. I do tend to reframe questions like he does. I've noticed that. I'm nowhere near as meticulous
or as
as
or
in
as
making decisions as him,
as what's the word? Ill-tempered.
but well, you catch me on the right day.
Yeah, we're gonna have you doing toaster
So,
oven reviews pretty soon.
I can be that particular with things, just but at the same time, I think I've got way more patience when things aren't exactly the way that I want them. So, I think it's hilarious. They had a big conversation about what was it, cheese graters
My God.
on ATP, and he found a cheese grater that he really loves, but it's hard to find. So he bought he's got a stockpile of
Oh,
them. So when one breaks, he can pull out the next one.
of course he does.
I love
Of
it.
course he does.
I love John. He's so me, but like way more me than I really want to be. I think it's hilarious. My wife kind of feels the same way too. She enjoys listening to him be meticulous. So his preparing the way episode of, I think it was Reconcilable Differences, when he was buying a new fridge, is one of the best podcasts I've ever listened to. It brought me so much joy.
I gave
Yeah.
reconcilable differences one episode, and I was like, there's no way I can handle Siracusa and Merlin Man
I know
together for that long. I was like, I think I would lose my mind.
yeah. No, I listen to the show a little bit. I've got it in Overcast, but I don't have it in my main queue. So, all right. Well, we can probably get around to what's delighting me
Yes,
today.
Mitch, what is delighting you?
So I know that I have kind of a habit of talking about vacations for what's delighting me, but this one is big. This is going to be probably the biggest vacation I'm going to take for a while. So no, I'm not going overseas, but
Right.
but my wife and I are celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary in June.
Congratulations.
So thank you. So we decided, and we are working through the process of getting licensed to foster, so we can do the foster to adopt program here in Wisconsin. So, and we could have kids in the house by the end of the year. So
Cool.
we're looking at trying just getting away for our 20th wedding anniversary. We figured out there was way too many reasons not to do this. I'm sorry, way too many reasons to do this.
Mm-hmm.
We are planning a vacation, and we just bought all our tickets and reserved our park passes and all that kind of stuff. We're going down to Orlando. That is where we honeymooned, by the way. And I didn't make that connection, but apparently my wife did when we just started talking about it. But we're going to go down to Orlando, and one of the things that we must hit. Do you have a guess?
Something to do with Star Wars.
It is
Yeah.
Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disney World. So I've got everything bought for that, and my wife and I had an interesting conversation the other day. I says I'm going to be earmarking about $600 to buy lightsabers while we're down there, and she looked at me and she's like, "What? That's a lot of money for something like that." And I was like, "Yeah, but," and then I went through all the stuff that, like, it's not just buy a lightsaber. You gotta, first off, there's Savi's workshop where you can go in and build your own lightsaber.
Wait, what?
And yeah, and so it's just like the experience is what you're paying for, and that's $200 to do that, $199. So you go in and you go into the workshop, and you they give you all the parts to build the hilt, and so you get to choose what you want and how you want it to look, and you build the hilt, and then they get you a blade for it, and you choose your kyber crystals. So I think that um to determine the color of the blade and all this kind of stuff. So It's
How do you get this on an
it's a
airplane?
whole. What's
How
that?
do you get this on an
This
airplane?
this is going to be a challenge, I think. We have talked about the possibility of just shipping it home from Orlando instead of taking it on the
There's
plane.
got to be a way to get it on
Oh no,
a plane.
I've thought through some other options. The one of the bags I'm taking is a Molly bag, and I've thought about like strapping it right to the side of the bag, like taking because they sell a sheath for
So it
them.
doesn't
I
collapse. It
thought
doesn't collapse into the hilt.
no, the blades are separate. Yeah, they're I think the longer one they come in a 36-inch and a 26-inch blade.
Oh, gotcha.
So I figured the blades I would keep out separate. The hilts, two of the hilts that I want to purchase would be in a case. So I would probably either put those in my luggage or in my carry-on, or I got a bag that I'm taking with me. So wherever I can fit those in there because they're going to be just, yay big in a case. So but the blades are the issue, and trying to figure out how to carry those. So I thought if I had the sheath, I wrapped it up real nice and then strapped it onto the bag,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps they would let that come through. So we'll see. But then they also sell replica hilts at the basically the gift shop, the Den of Antiquities is what it's referred to. So there's a couple of them that I want to purchase that I'm not sure if I'm going to buy the blades at the park yet. I'm going to look and see what they cost. If they're not outrageous, I might buy them right at the park. But otherwise, I can order them on Amazon too. But whoever sells them on Amazon always marks them up. So it's just a matter of whether it costs. I mean, if they cost $50 a piece, and then I'm shipping them for $10-$20, it makes sense monetarily, but otherwise I'm just going to end up paying that on Amazon for them anyway. So
Very good.
yeah.
This is I've
Yeah.
been looking at this on the interwebs. This is intense, man.
It's pretty crazy. It's good stuff. So in relation to that, I have two things sitting on my desk over here that you may either think are cool or pathetic. But so Coke is the provider of all the soft drinks at the park.
Mm-hmm.
And they have I ran across this and I had to order one from somebody on eBay ahead of time, and just because it was too much fun. And this is the Coke bottle that they have down at Galaxy's Edge. It's intended to look like the thermal detonator.
Oh, nice.
So for anybody that's listening on the audio, it's round. It's got the top on it is configured. If you look it up online, you can find it. But you notice the Coca-Cola is written in what's called Arabic. That is the written language in the Star Wars universe. What's spoken is Galactic Basic, but that's Arabic, and it's stylized to look like the Coke logo and stuff like that. But I just thought this was the coolest thing in the world, and I needed to have one, so I purchased one on eBay and spent too much money on it. The other thing, there's a guy. Let's see if I can find his name here real quick. Writes these really cool travel guides. I doubt that this is his real name. I'm guessing that this is a pen name that he uses for the Star Wars universe specifically, but it's Eloch Throno.
I'm gonna agree with you on that's probably not his real name.
That's probably not his real name, but he writes these field guides to different locales in the Star Wars universe. This one is unique.
Holy crap, that's a lot thicker than I thought it was.
Yeah, it's got some heft to it. There's a lot. I mean, it's a style.
I was thinking it was like a
really,
like a bifold pamphlet, not a full. Oh my goodness!
No,
yeah, that's
it's all full color.
wow.
It's really
Rick
nice.
Steves for the Star Wars universe, huh?
Yeah, there's some other ones that he makes. Like he has the Traveler's Guide to Tatooine, which obviously you can't go to Tatooine because it's a fictional place. But what sets this one apart? is this is the Traveler's Guide to Batu, and specifically the Black Spire outpost at Batu, which is the Galaxy's Edge, the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge theme park. So this is a traveler's guide to the theme park,
Oh,
written like it's a real planet, a real location that you go into. It has all the backstory of all the characters that are in the at the Black Spire outpost, down to a lot of stuff that people probably wouldn't notice. There is a cantina called Oga's Cantina, and of course, Oga has a whole backstory, along with Doc Andra. Doc Andro. I would have to look that up. He's the guy that owns the Den of Antiquities, in the Star Wars universe. And Oga's Cantina, there is a book, the second book in the newer of the Thrawn trilogy, Thrawn Alliance, I think it's called, where there's like stuff that's happening right now in the book, and then there's some flashbacks throughout the book. The flashbacks take place on Batu, and it's where Grand Admiral Thrawn, I don't know that he was a Grand Admiral yet, but he meets up with Anakin, and they have an adventure together in this on Batu. Well, there's a scene in the book that takes place in a cantina where there's a shootout and all this stuff. Well, apparently the Aga's Cantina is where this happens in the book, and they went to the pains of putting blaster scorch marks and stuff like that on the walls in the cantina that are from that shootout.
nice.
So I wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for this travel guide. So yeah, I'm just about what am I? A little over halfway through the book right now, just kind of reading all the backstory, and they've got explanations on all the characters that are in the theme park and all that kind of stuff. But nothing in the book ever references it being a theme park.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing in the book references it being Disney. It's all like he went to this outpost and he's telling the story of the outpost and what to expect if you travel, giving travel recommendations, like, you know, try out the cantina. Here's some drinks that I really enjoyed at the cantina. it is so masterfully done that I really enjoyed that. So, and I am enjoying it. So yeah, the book was kind of my unofficial what's delighting me, but just the whole thing that we're doing. I've only covered the Star Wars part of it. We are going to go to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter as well while we're down there. So I'm a little less excited about that one, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So my wife's really psyched to. I don't know if you've ever done a Magic Quest before. They're supposed to be like similar stuff at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. We did Magic Quest up here in the Dells, and it was a lot of fun. So you get a little wand and you run around and, you know, make things happen. And
yeah, I've had family members that
it's a good time.
Go to Harry Potter World like every year and they love it. So
yeah, so not cheap by any means, but it should be. I mean, I'm not worried. I'm honestly not worried about spending a little extra money on stuff. This is our 20th anniversary, so the only day that we don't have planned right now is the day of our anniversary. So I want to talk to some, like, our concierge when we get down there and find a good place to eat and stuff like that. So.
Have you heard of Applebee's? It's our neighborhood grill.
No. I can go to Applebee's up here.
All right, fine. Don't have a romantic dinner at Applebee's then, Mitch. Make a bad choice.
I told my wife, I showed my wife the budget for the meal that I was planning, and she looked at me, she's like, what? I was like, we're gonna go out somewhere nice. I'm gonna make sure there's enough money in the budget for that. She's like, okay. So I think it was only $100 in the budget, but it could end up being more than that. So
well, I hope you guys have a wonderful time.
I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to be our last neat little adventure to have before we got kids in the house, which will be a whole nother kind of adventure.
Ain't that the truth?
So I've been meaning to ask you because I haven't said anything yet because I've been waiting for it to come up as something that's delighting you. But I noticed that you got a DJI Mavic Pro or
I got
one of
the
the
Mavic
drones,
Air 2. Yes.
Air 2.
Yes. Yes,
So
yes, yes,
how
yes.
have you been enjoying that? I know I've seen a video or two on Instagram.
It's unreal. It's super cool. The very first time I flew it inside of my house, which was a terrible decision because my house is the size of a postage stamp. Um, but I figured out a few things then, and then I flew it outside the next time. Quick thinking,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it crashed it into a tree. uh,
So I'm assuming it's pretty hardened against some of that stuff.
well, so luckily, what had happened was I was flying it and I was looking at my phone like I was supposed to. So and then I flew it overhead and I made the mistake of looking up at the drone instead of down at my phone. And I flew it into the tree in my front yard, but the very, very, very top of the tree where the branches are
Mhm.
like, a quarter inch thick, maybe, and there's no leaves.
Yeah.
So it has front, rear, and side obstacle avoidance, just not up and down.
Mhm.
Because you have to buy the Pro to get omnidirectional obstacle avoidance. But
Yeah.
apparently, the branches were so small that the obstacle avoidance didn't notice them, and I flew straight into those tiny little branches. And I thought I broke my drone because, as it turns out, when there's a collision, the gimbal just goes limp. Like all the
Yeah.
motors disengage, which is really, really smart. But I'm looking at my phone and my camera is pointing straight at the ground. And I'm like, oh my God, I just flushed $1,000 down the toilet in 5 minutes. I was beyond upset. So then I
Mhm.
had to manage, then the obstacle avoidance kicked in. So I had to manage somehow. I couldn't use the camera because so I was looking up 50 feet in the air, trying to like 3D orient my drone around these branches. And I finally got it out of the tree. And then I brought it down to the ground. And then as soon as it landed, the gimbal just re-engaged back to the way it was. And I was like literally in a parking lot on the busiest corner of my town going, thank you, Jesus. Like I went from being so mad to being so
Yeah.
relieved. Then I checked the blades, everything was fine. So I took it up for a test flight, flew it like, 10 or 12 feet off the ground right in front of me, just making sure that everything was fine. Then I took it for like another 15-minute flight, this time making sure to never take my eyes off of the phone. Um, and I've learned a few things since then about it, but it's a lot of fun. I'm actually planning on taking it out because it's like going to be in the 50s and sunny today, so I might take it out to some of the parks or over
The
the
weather's
river.
been beautiful. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun little guy, and I can't wait to get better at using it and trying some of the different shot styles and that.
Pretty easy to fly.
Um, it's easy to fly. It is not so easy to fly well, if that makes sense. Like if you want really, really, really smooth, you know, cinematic footage, right, where everything just feels like the gimbal steadies everything, but if you turn the drone too fast, your camera's just going to whip and it's not going to be watchable.
Mhm.
You're going to go, oh, that's gross. So if you want to like to pan left or right, or tilt the camera up or down, you've got to be very subtle on the controls, otherwise it feels herky
Mhm.
jerky. But yeah, getting the drone around is quite easy. But yeah, some of more of the fine tuned stuff just requires some experience and some patience. But
Yeah, I've been considering getting like one of the minis. So it's been on my list.
yeah, I debated hard between this one and the mini, and the reason I went with this one was because it takes 48 megapixel photos, and I have a photo
Mhm.
business on the side, and I thought, man, if I could get some 48 megapixel wedding shots of like the like above the ceremony. Now it'd have to
Mhm.
be pretty high up because you don't want to hear while someone's saying I do, right?
Yeah.
But or even just like stuff at church or like some senior portraits and that sort of stuff. You could do some creative stuff with the different perspectives. So, but yeah, it's the mini is a great little drone, and it's way cheaper.
Yeah,
and it's under 250.
Like $300.
Yeah, it's under 250 grams, so you don't even have to register it, which is nice.
Right. Well, cool. Well, I think that wraps up the show for this week. We do have a website, interdialogue.show. You can check us out there. Check out we have a back catalog now. I think this is technically episode 20.
Oh, look at that.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we're pretty fancy now.
Oh, show.
I'd
say 20. I'd say 20 is a pattern, Mitch.
20 is a pattern. It's a habit. Yeah. So interdialogue.show. You can also check us out on Twitter. If you have questions, comments, anything that you'd like to share with us, we are totally open to hear it. You can hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Mitch Craig.
And I'm at Cam Brennan.
At some point, if we are able to put together a large enough community of listeners, we can look at some other options for that. But I think the Twitter thing works well for us right now. So,
indubitably,
cool. Yes. Anyway, this is going to be an episode of just goofy stuff that I got.
I'd loved the judgment in your face there. That was glorious.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time, man.
Cheerio.